Hi folks, welcome to your cheese and wine tasting kit from Smash Grapes. We're not going to tell you which cheese goes with which wine because the reality is all cheese makes wine taste great. That combination of fat and salt really bring out all the flavours. Coming up, we've got our 6 drink-along videos that give you a little bit more information on all the wines in the kit. Enjoy. So here we have the Beppe Morchetta Rosso. So this is a Vino d'Italia, but it's from the Veneto region, northern Italy.
Absolutely, northern Italy. So we've talked about in the past how great white wine is from northern Italy, and obviously we've got Prosecco from northern Italy, Pinot Grigio from northern Italy, Soave from northern Italy, but red wine. So northern Italy has got quite a rich heritage when it comes to red wine. Barolo is from northern Italy. Barbaresco from northern Italy, and even Amarone is from northern Italy. Now, the thing about northern Italian red wines, it's pretty cold up there. It's pretty cold, and so you don't get the amount of heat and the amount of sunshine needed to make big, rich, sort of luscious red wines, and as a result, they can be a bit tart, they can be a bit abrasive. And actually, most people sort of associate Barolo, for example, with heavy, rich red wine. You might buy a bottle from the supermarket, get it home, and be pretty surprised to find out that it's tart and it's high acid and it's a bit abrasive. And that's all to do with the northern climate. So what do you do about that? Well, with Amarone, for example, and by the way, Amarone shares a grape with this particular red wine, Corvina. Corvina is one of the red grapes in this red and is also in Amarone. What they do is a process of drying the grapes out in the sun to reduce the water content, increase the sugar concentration, and mellow out that sort of abrasiveness with sugar. We don't have that here, so what have they done? They've taken Corvina, that exact same red grape that's found in Amarone, and they've paired it with Merlot. Merlot, the king of velvet, I would say. Yeah. Velvet smoothness. It does fine in this cool climate. It still brings out that lovely, lush, plummy flavour. You pair it with a Corvina, which is very much sort of red cherry, tart, red fruit flavours, maybe red currant, maybe cranberry, that sort of thing we would associate with a cooler climate, the tartar nature. And what you get is a really fantastic all-rounder red wine, where the abrasiveness of that sort of cold Italian climate, because bear in mind we're not far from the Alps here, is calmed down with the smoothness of Merlot.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is... It's a lovely red wine, very smooth, very easy. You said velvet smooth, I'm going to one-up you. I'm going dolphin smooth. Ever touched a dolphin?
No.
Like wet leather, soft.
Scares me slightly.
But it is, it's a really smooth, easy drinking red, you know, like, I mean, you know, clearly people want to know what you're eating this with, but I'm going straight in and saying, this is just this feels like a party to me.
It's a party wine for sure. It's easy drinking red wine. You know, my go-to generally for easy drinking reds would be Pinot Noir. Now the trade-off you get with Pinot Noir, yes, it's low in tannin, so you don't get the grip on the gums and you don't get that abrasive nature on the gums. But actually, because it's a real cool climate red, perhaps the juicy fruit gets reduced a bit. And for me, sometimes Pinot Noir can be a bit thin as a result. And maybe so if you had a Pinot Noir at the party, some people would think it was great. Some people might be a bit like, I'm not sure. But for this, you've got a cool climate red wine, so that there's none of that abrasive nature, just like a Pinot Noir. But you've got a bit of Merlot in there, giving it a bit of guts and a bit of something that I think the average red wine drinker is going to rock up to the party and go, hey, this is all right. I like this. There's flavour going on for me. But I can do several bottles.
Exactly. Outside of a party environment, which ultimately is going to, picky bits, things like that, bit of varied. What would you eat with this kind of, a Northern Italy red or this one in particular?
This is very much like what we've talked about in the past as a field blend. So we've talked about Spanish field blends in the past. We talked about French field blends in the past. These are wines that were designed for really the family of wine producers to take home at the end of the day. So they would have had their commercial plots for selling to international customers, and then they would have had wines like this for themselves. And so they would have been designed for having at dinner time. They would have been, they're not thinking about a posh party in their middle class kitchen diners. No. They're talking about bringing them home, sticking them on the table. And so they're great all-rounders. You know, they'd go great with tapas or, you know, that sort of antipasti style food. Any meal, really. You know, it's a fantastic all-rounder midweek staple.
I mean, Zoe behind the camera is probably going to strangle me here because I'm going to throw Sam a right curveball. But red wine in risotto, they tend to use like Amarone, things like that. Is this a wine you can cook with?
Ooh, for sure, yeah. I wouldn't hesitate to cook with this. You know, there's this whole thing, you might, you know, see a celebrity chef saying, oh, you know, you should only cook with fantastic quality red wines. You can cook with any quality red wine. This would go great if you wanted to sort of splash it in a bolognese or something like that. Fantastic little cooking wine, risotto for sure. But yeah, not too much, where you keep some for yourself.
There you go. So no need to throw a quick edit in there. Sam saved himself. So there we go. Cheers. Here we've got another beautiful little number from Montrochet, but this time it's a Malbec, another Vieille Vin, Pays d'Oc from France. French Malbec, Sam. What we got going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Malbec, super popular grape variety that we generally associate with the Argentinians, and quite rightly because they do a fantastic job at it. But it was born and bred in France. Malbec, it's what we call a Bordeaux variety. So we sort of throw it in with Merlot, Cabernet Franc from the sort of Bordeaux region in the southwest of France. Particularly, there's a region called Cahors in the south of that area, which specialised in Malbec. Now, in that area, we're talking much cooler climate than what you'd expect from Argentina. And so you don't get that sort of big, rich, velvety nature from it in Cahors, that is. And it was actually quite abrasive. So if you are a Malbec lover and you do see Cahors Malbec still on the supermarket shelf, which you can, I noticed one in Sainsbury's the other day, it might not be for you. However, Montrochet, they've done a fantastic job, as they always do. What they've done is they've taken the French knowledge around Malbec, but they've moved it out of Cahors into the Languedoc-Roussillon region where there's a lot more heat, a lot more sunshine, and it's moving towards that Argentinian sort of more familiar style that we enjoy. So Malbec, as a grape variety, why do we love it so much? Well, at the moment, we love full-bodied red wines, right? We like big, voluptuous red and dark fruits in our red wine. We don't like to piss about when it comes to red wine. However, the thing that we don't like in red wines at the moment, as a nation, this is that tannin, that abrasiveness, that grip of the gums, that drying feeling on your tongue. Malbec, as a grape variety, is quite unique in that it has particularly thick skins that can tolerate the sunshine and the heat, which means it can get super ripe, super sugary, and convert that into high alcohol and lots of rich fruit. But those skins don't take a huge amount of work from the winemaker to break down and become velvety smooth. Now, in Argentina, they'll whack in a ton of oak, generally American and French, to break those skins down and get rid of that tannin nature and make those rich velvety flavours. In France, this is 0% oak. There is no oak here, but Malbec naturally, in the tannin nature of the skins, breaks away in the winemaking to make what is a full and fruity red wine without that sort of punch in the face.
Yeah, so it's got all that kind of stuff I personally love about Malbec. It is very smooth, it's very easy drinking, but it doesn't have that kind of what can sometimes be like a bit of a vanilla bomb and kind of woodiness to it, which, you know, I'm not missing. Like, I'm not missing, but it's definitely different to, say, an Argentinian Malbec.
Yeah, for sure. So most Argentinian Malbecs, I would say, have about 8 to 12 months of French and American oak, and that's where you get the vanilla bomb. That's where you get the chocolatey nature. Now, sometimes that can be like a Yankee candle, in your wine, and actually that's not for everybody.
Are you trying to say American oak is a bit bolshy and in your face?
Yeah, for sure. American oak, really, really bolshy and in your face, and that's not for everybody. So if you've been trying Argentinian Malbec and you're like, whoa, what is this like vanilla, sort of almost fake vanilla flavour that's in my wine, you can get Argentinian Malbec that is unoaked and give that a try for sure. But give these guys a try as well. The French Malbecs, not from Cahors, demonstrate that sort of rich fruitiness without the vanilla, maybe without the sort of cedary spice and that sort of thing, without the leathery nature.
And you know, when am I going to grab this bottle and open it up? You know, what occasion am I drinking there?
Malbec, you know, from Argentina, fantastic with steak. This is a little bit lighter than, as we've said, maybe with your burgers. I don't know if you do homemade burgers, but this for me is always a go-to for homemade burgers. Slightly leaner beef, that sort of style, maybe bolognese, mince, that sort of thing.
Oh, very good. Well, look, definitely for me, could be my new midweek Malbec.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Yep.
Here we've got the Umbrelle Merlot from the Villa Timosuli region of Romania. Another Cremel Răcas wine here. Fantastic, lovely red. Talk to us about this one from Romania then.
Yeah, again, we're back with Cremel Răcas, founded by Englishman Philip Cox and his wife Elvira from Romania. They started in 1988, so all those years ago, but now are a massive international operation. This is by no means horse and cart winemaking, state of the art. They do their international varieties brilliantly, so we're talking your Merlot, your Pinot Noir, your Sauvignon Chardonnay. They also have plantings of traditional Romanian varieties going back to the 1400s. Fantastic operation, we absolutely love them, and a great representation of what Romanian wine can be.
Yeah, you said there that, you know, they do a lot of those international varietals, so, you know, when we say that, we mean the big boys that we all know, Merlots, Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, etc. Why is Romania delivering those wines at such great quality and value? Like what, you know, as opposed to the other countries?
So take Merlot, for example, you know, synonymous really with French winemaking. Romania has very, very similar climate to France, particularly central France, where a lot of the big winemaking happens, you know, Burgundy, Bordeaux, those types of regions, Côte d'Or. They've got all the same climate, they've got the same soil, they're the same distance from the equator, they've got all of the stuff, they've got the technology, perhaps even more advanced technology. What they don't have, which actually is to their benefit, is the coast. So, particularly Bordeaux, for example, where Merlot is sort of born, and Merlot is super famous and can be super expensive. Bordeaux, right on the coast of France. You can have years where everything goes brilliantly in the fields, but then a storm blows in from the Atlantic, everything goes wrong, and as a result, the yields are down and the price is up, right? And that's just life for a winemaking country that is close to the sea, and that could be applied to New Zealand, it could apply to parts of Italy, wherever. Romania doesn't have that. All of its winemaking happens inland. I know there is a little bit of coast on Romania, but none of the winemaking happens there. Right up the top. It's completely inland, so it has all of the attributes that make winemaking easy, and none of the weather that can turn the tables. And that means that we've got consistent quality every single year that they can rely on and sort of stand by, and that means they can keep their prices super reasonable. This is, for me, a fantastic example of how great Merlot can be, because they know every single year what the climate's going to be, what the soil's going to be like, how the grapes are going to react to the environment, so they can price it brilliantly for great quality.
Yeah, I mean, I love an easy drinking red. You know, I like the big boys, but I do, you know, I love my Pinot Noirs, I do love my Merlots, ultimately because it's quite easy to, you know, take a couple of large glasses of it. Now, you've always had this little thing in your head about, you know, oh, medium Merlot, it's medium body, medium alcohol, it's a bit meh. I think there's quite a bit going on here. Like, this is a good Merlot.
There is. I am guilty of the medium Merlot stereotype. You know, so Pinot Noir, as you say, is very much the lightest end of red wine. You take something like a Shiraz or a Cabernet or a Malbec at the heavy end, and Merlot is in the middle of that. You know, you've got rich, ripe plum flavours. You've got a bit of tannin, that grippiness that we get in the mouth, but not too much. It's in the middle. And sometimes, yeah, I do feel that you know, particularly from France, if you want reasonable pricing, you know, if you don't want to go mad, it can be a bit sort of, you know, there's just not a lot there. But these guys, and I do think it's down to the fact that they're a state-of-the-art operation and they've got the weather on their side. They can deliver what maybe would be a £15 Merlot. You know, they can deliver it for $8.99 in the bottle. And so, yeah, the plumminess that is so synonymous with Merlot is richer. And the smoothness is smoother.
Yeah.
And everything about what they do, they've amped it up. They know what we want.
Yeah, they've knocked it up to 11.
Yeah, and they've turned up the dial.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, look, I love it. Could definitely drink a few of it. When am I reaching for this bottle of wine?
A lovely midweek wine, this. You know, if you're doing pasta, anything with a red pasta sauce, your spaghetti bolognese, you know, your pasta bakes, anything like that, tomatoes, flavours really going to go well with a Merlot. Yeah, you know, those are types of Italian flavours. Any midweek meal, really. Midweek Merlot. That's a thing. I've just made it.
Well, there you go. I mean, you know, medium Merlot fella over here needs his glass topped up, so I think we're on to a winner. Cheers.
Cheers.
So here we've got the Montrachet Carignan, again another Vieille Vin, another old vine from the Pays d'Oc in France. So Montrachet Carignan, what we got going on here?
Yep, Carignan, fantastic grape variety that we basically hear nothing about. It's a big blender, so you know, in northern Spain, some of the most prestigious wines of northern Spain are blended with Carignan, and the same in southern France, but you don't tend to hear about it. Carignan is a born survivor. This grape will grow anywhere. You put it in perfect conditions and it will grow in huge quantities and very, very easily. And that tends to be where we get mass-produced, not very great red wine. Put it in difficult conditions, however, like the sort of rocky, rugged areas of the Roussillon in the south of France, where this comes from, we're talking about bush vines here that are like clinging onto a rock on the side of a mountain. We're not talking about flat vineyards here, we're talking about like literally a bush clinging onto something. The struggle that they have to go through to survive creates these grapes that are full of fruity flavour. And Carignan, once it's put through that trial, becomes rich and dark. It's pure Ribena in flavour and like a dark, rich, licoricey sort of flavour to it. And it's actually quite crazy, really, how concentrated and dark in flavour this grape can be. We actually know nothing about it compared to something like Malbec or Shiraz.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I just had a little drink then, and I was like, you know, this is proper Ribena, you know. And I'm not talking tooth kind here. This, you know, real blackcurrant hit. Like, again, you know, it's not about telling you what you should and shouldn't taste, but you can't avoid that. Like, it's really nice. It's a really nice red wine.
Absolutely. We're talking old vines again. We talked about that before, but these are vines that are classified as old once they get to 60, 70, 80, 100 years old. That means that the yield is much lower. The amount of grapes that grow on the bush is much lower. The grapes that still remain on the bush are super concentrated in flavour. If I had to name a single grape variety that delivers the most amount of flavour per pound, Carignan is the one. And I would urge anybody actually to seek out Carignan from the supermarket, from a wine list in a restaurant, not just from us, because it's mad how it doesn't get sort of talked about. It is a survivor. It will deal with the most awful of climates and still produce fantastic quality wine.
I mean, like Ribena as a drink, going to be on the menu at quite a lot of kids' parties. Not necessarily this one.
No.
You know, when am I reaching for a bottle of Carignan?
So I think anything that has got a dark, rich gravy for me. I mean, that's what this is: rich, fruity gravy in a bottle for me. So, you know, if you're serving a roast dinner of lamb or beef and you've really put the work into the gravy, or something with a rich sauce, you know, anything like that is going to be a pairing.
I'm going to throw you a rhetorical question here. I don't know the answer. I tried to Google it, couldn't find out. What's the difference between a sauce and a gravy?
Ooh, a sauce and a...
I feel like it's something to do with meat
I don't
juice.
think you can pour a sauce, can you?
I've got a hollandaise as a sauce. I suppose you spoon it on though.
I don't know.
Who knows? If you know the answer, maybe let us know. Yeah, so you said then, you know, when are we eating? You know, what are we eating with this?
So the other thing about Carignan is the area that it grows, these rugged parts of Roussillon in the southern France. We're talking, it's like right next door to rosemary bushes and oregano, but like wild oregano, those sort of what we call Provençal herbs, south of France herbs. So anything where you're throwing in thyme, rosemary, oregano, those types of herbiness, that's 100% where you're going to put this. So that could be Italian flavours, it could be French flavours. Again, when there's a dark jus, gravy, sauce, anything like that, this is your man.
I mean, might give it a go with a bit of lamb and rosemary myself.
Ooh. Cheers.
Here we've got the Costa Vera Carmenere from the Central Valley in Chile. So this is another Indomitor wine, but
Another
this is the
Indomitor
Costa
wine.
Vera.
Absolutely, Indomitor, fantastic Chilean wine producer who basically stock all of our Chilean wines, super state of the art, really eco-conscious. They've got this community program where they only employ from the local community, which sounds simple, but is actually just super rare in the wine industry. You know, the wine industry tends to import labor from abroad at cheap, and some of the practices aren't great. Indomitor, fantastic. Their winery looks amazing. Like, it's built into the mountain. It looks like something off of a Bond film. Fantastic. This is their Carmenere. Carmenere, strange old grape that we've not really heard of a huge amount. In order to sort of explain Carmenere, I've got to give you a history lesson.
Oh, here we go. Come on then. Come on. Hit us with it.
So when the Spanish went over to the New World in the sort of the early 1500s, the first thing they packed, you know, quicker than we would pack our underpants, was grape varieties. They brought vines over. They were swiftly followed by the French, and they quickly realized that the Chilean landscape was perfect for wine growing, the soil, climate, and that sort of thing. Now, when you're a Frenchman bringing grapes over to the New World, what you're going to do, you're going to, of course, go to Bordeaux, the capital of wine growing. And those varieties at the time were Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and a little unknown variety called Carmenere. But Carmenere was a pain in the ass. A pain in the ass to grow. It was finicky. It didn't like changes in weather. It was really difficult, and it was falling out of fashion. So generally, what they did is they brought over the three favourites, Merlot, Cabernet, and Cabernet Franc. And in fact, even Cabernet Franc wasn't super popular, so it was very much Merlot and Cabernet, two grapes that we sort of associate with Chile now. Fast forward a few hundred years, we're talking 19th century, 20th century, and Chilean Merlot is booming. It's absolutely booming, and the Cabernet for sure, absolutely booming. The Chilean wine industry is growing at a rate of knots. The French have done their work. Chilean wine is fantastic, and particularly Chilean Merlot was given its own sort of title as Chilean Super Merlot because it was fruitier, it was spicier, it was more interesting than a standard French Merlot. Fast forward again to the 21st century, DNA testing comes in, we start testing our grape varieties for their history, and we find out Chilean Super Merlot, not Merlot at all, Carmenere. By that time, Carmenere had become extinct in France. We had Phylloxera in the 1800s, a little mite that came over from America, destroyed European grapevines and wiped off a lot of grape varieties. The Carmenere was non-existent in France, but had flourished in Chile and made the Super Merlot.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot going on to it. That's what I mean. I think that's why the Super Merlot came into it. It's got that kind of like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like I say, we're not one for pushing tasting notes on people, but there is like a bit of a green pepper, kind of bell pepper kind of vibe in it. Yeah, great wine.
So yeah, it's got all the fruit. It's got that plummy nature. It's got red fruit. It's got dark fruit, just like Merlot has, but almost in like a sort of a dialed up thing. But the thing that separates Carmenere from Merlot is that green nature, green bell pepper, a spiciness, a sort of, I think it's the flavour of fajitas. That's the flavour that I get from Carmenere. The flavour of fajitas, you know, that sort of peppery spiciness that comes through when you chop up all those peppers and stick them in your fajita mix.
Yeah, I mean, put it in a NutriBullet, whacking a glass of Merlot in it, probably not the right thing in your head. But yeah, I get what you're feeling. That's got that vibe to it. So you're saying fajita, so Mexican.
This
that kind of vibe.
Carmenere, I mean, I love Carmenere. I actually think it's super easy drinking. That there's not too much tannin. You know, there's not too much grip on the gums. It's like Merlot in that fact that it is easy drinking. But for me, it's my go-to when I'm planning a bit of spice of the evening. So, you know, whether it be spag bowl, but I'm going to throw a bit more chili in than you perhaps would. Yeah. Whether it be fajitas, you know, anything like that, where you're adding a little bit of extra chili or pepper to your dinners. That's where I'm putting Carmenere.
I mean, and if you're thinking barbecue, kind of anything, like I say, anything with a bit of spicing on there, paprika, that kind of thing, solid red for that occasion.
Absolutely, solid red. It's still an all-rounder as well. Let's not forget this is in the middle ground territory. We're not talking Shiraz or Cabernet or Malbec. It's not super heavy-bodied. It's in the middle territory. You pull this out at a party and, you know, pour it round and everyone's having a sip going, this is really great. They're going to be surprised to hear that it's Carmenere and not something middle of the road like a Merlot or a Tempranillo. It's a great all-rounder in that sense, from a fantastic winery when it comes to sustainability and practice, and great value for money.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, could be one of my new favourites. Cheers.
Cheers.
Ignacio Marin Ganache, and this is from Cariñena in Spain.
Absolutely, yeah. So Cariñena, which sounds pretty similar to the grape name Carignan. And Carignan, yeah, super famous French grape, but it's originally called Cariñena and comes from Cariñena in Spain. Goes into lots of popular Spanish red wines, but we're talking about Ganache here, grown in that region. Ganache is a super popular red grape in Spain. It's a grape that most of you will have drank in Rioja. If you go to Rioja, it's always a blend of at least Tempranillo and Ganache. It's generally more Tempranillo and Ganache, but there'll be plenty of Ganache in there. Ganache as a grape is generally always blended. We've talked about Ganache in the past as a blended grape in Provence Rosé. It's what gives the colour to Rosé and a lot of the flavour to Rosé. But generally Ganache turns up in various areas. Côte de Rhône, for example, as Grenache, as blends. And it's actually had a pretty bad reputation up till recently as a single varietal. The thing about Ganache, it loves the sun. Oh, it loves the sun.
Worshipper.
Sun comes out, it's like this. Not the mirror.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I love a bit of sun. But what happens as a result, if not controlled, is it becomes what we call in the wine world flabby. It becomes flabby, and we've all seen them, haven't we? We've all seen them lying out there in the sun. Basically, no. What flabby means is that there's no structure to it. There's no bite. There's no refreshingness. It's just pure sugary fruit, which is nice if you want, kids to drink it, which I don't recommend, by the way.
No, definitely not.
But if we want to have a nice rounded red wine, we want a bit of bite and we want a tannin. So it received a bad reputation for that. But do you know what? There are a small amount of Spanish wine growers that actually champion Ganache on its own and control that heat exposure, control the way the wine's grown to actually make Ganache that, sure, delivers tons of rich fruit flavour, but still the structure and the bite and everything else we want from a red
there's
wine.
a big push at the minute in a lot of very popular big brand red wines to throw jam or jammy or whatever onto the label, because people want that kind of slightly sweeter, fruitier hit. And some of those big brands, it is achieved literally by adding powdered sugars to it. But Spanish hot climate Ganache can deliver that just naturally, yeah?
100%, yeah. So if you do like a jammy red, perhaps particularly famous red that maybe a Snoop Dogg might endorse, or one with a kangaroo on the side, if you like that sort of flavour, that is richness of sugar, and there's no problem with that. Like if you like it slightly sweeter, that's totally cool. But generally that will be powdered sugar. Not great for your health. It's certainly not great for your head the next morning. Ganache, what that will deliver for you, much like a Primitivo from southern Italy, is that naturally. It sucks up the sun, converts that into jammy sugar flavours for you. And it does that completely naturally. We're talking proper rugged landscape here, with these are bush vines growing in rocks on the side of mountains, not in flat fields, where the rocks only amplify the heat. We're talking small amounts of yield as well, which means that you get less grapes, you get less wine, but you get more concentration of flavour. And for me, this is the way to drink jammy red wines.
Yeah, I suppose, so we're looking at a jammy red here, naturally jammy, not additively. 13.5, so it's not a small player in the field of alcohol. When am I reaching for this bottle?
So for me, this is a great barbecue wine, for sure, as we sort of move into the nicer weather. If you've got sort of richer, spicier flavours on the barbecue, maybe a barbecue sauce or an Asian spice, that's going to go fantastically with that. But equally, those jammy reds, they're good for just a midweek glass. If you got home from work, you want something that's not going to rip your face off before dinner, but you want a glass of red to ease the stress of the day.
Ease the weekend with a nice jammy red.
Then this is the sort of thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm probably going to ditch the criminal-related reds, switch to something naturally jammy, because I think it's just a nice, easy drinking.
For sure. Yeah. We've also got oak aging here. Okay. So this is 3 to 6 months in French and American oak. So what do we mean by that? Well, American oak, it gives you those vanilla and spicy flavours that you sort of associate maybe with a Rioja. Mm-hmm. French oak, you've got more of those sort of like coconutty, subtle flavours. Bring the two together and you get a really nice overall flavour profile.
I mean, this is nice. I could certainly drink the bottle, and I'm looking forward to doing it.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching our drink along videos. We hope you enjoyed the wine. Don't forget to come back and spend your £10 voucher on your favourite.